If I get eaten, at least y'all get a front row seat. Worth your subscription, right?
The flashlight didn't flicker. It dropped. A sudden jarring shift in the frame, as if the device was yanked downward mid-step. Then, darkness. The only light came from the stars above, caught briefly as the phone landed at an awkward tilt in the dirt. For several seconds, nothing moved. And then, just before the screen went black, audio picked up something faint. Not footsteps, not wind. Something that sounded like whispering. That was the last moment anyone saw or heard from 26-year-old Lauren Cook. She wasn't lost. At least, not in the usual sense. Her phone had service. She was live streaming. Hundreds of people were watching. They saw her laughing at her own bad jokes, swinging her flashlight around as she hiked beneath the cliffs near Utah's Sand Bench Trail. She talked about how beautiful the desert looked under moonlight, paused to catch her breath near a ridge, and promised she'd turn back soon. She didn't seem scared, just tired, and maybe a little overconfident. It was close to midnight. She was hiking alone. What began as a casual night stream for her followers turned into one of the most disturbing digital vanishing points of the past decade. There were no signs of a fall, no cries for help, no visible intruder, just a sudden drop, a trail of confused chat messages, and a phone that eventually went dark. Days later, that video would be picked apart frame by frame, not just by officials, but by amateur sleuths, fans, and family, all trying to figure out what, if anything, went wrong. Lauren wasn't reckless, but she also wasn't rigid. She liked doing things on impulse. If the weather was nice and she had signal, she'd go for it. That's what her friend said later. Sometimes she'd leave gear behind to lighten her load, or take unmarked paths just to see where they go. Her hiking was less about precision and more about experience. She wasn't careless, just casual. That's what made her fun to watch. That's also what scared her sister the most. Because when Lauren went missing, there was no prepared backup, no detailed itinerary, no second phone in the glove box. She hadn't told anyone how long she planned to be out, only that she might do a sunset hike before heading back across the border into Nevada. Search teams found her car parked exactly where it should have been. But no Lauren, no phone, and no flashlight. What remains is a single, unsettling stream. Viewers remember the last words she said. They remember the sound of her breath catching. And they remember the faint, almost inaudible whisper right before the screen went black. Dozens of people claimed they heard it. No one has been able to say what it meant. Whatever happened, it didn't feel accidental. And that's where this story begins. Lauren Elise Cook was born on May 14, 1998, in Sparks, Nevada, a city perched between desert flats and the Sierra Nevada foothills, where people talk more about snowpack and trail closures than traffic. She was the middle child of 3, raised in a house where the TV was always on low volume and the family dog had full couch privileges. Her parents, Mark and Denise, worked regular jobs. He in HVAC repair, she in the city registrar's office. And by all accounts, Lauren's childhood was steady, warm, and entirely unremarkable. But she didn't want to stay where it was comfortable. By high school, Lauren had started recording everything. Not with professional gear, but with whatever phone she could afford. Used iPhones, cracked Androids, a borrowed GoPro when someone would lend her one. She documented car rides, group hikes, coffee runs. Most of it never made it online. It was more about remembering how things felt. After graduating from Reed High in 2016, she tried a semester of college at Truckee Meadows Community College, but didn't stay. She told her sister Amanda she felt trapped, and 6 weeks later she was driving solo to Arches National Park with nothing but a tent, a jug of water, and a folder full of offline maps. That trip wasn't live streamed. It was just for her. Over the next 3 years, Lauren picked up part-time jobs to fund what she called her mini-escapes. She bartended, worked front desks at motels, cleaned houses through apps, and once delivered for a flower shop during Valentine's week to make gas money. She didn't call herself a travel blogger, not at first, but by the end of 2020, she had started a public Instagram under the name High Desert Lauren. That's when the following began. Her social media wasn't polished. Most of her posts were unfiltered, captioned with phrases like, "Went the wrong way again but found this view," or "Probably should have brought a jacket, LOL." She talked about anxiety, solo travel nerves, the weird fear of walking back to your car after dark. She didn't post for clout. She posted like someone leaving breadcrumbs, not for others to follow, but to remind herself how far she'd come. By early 2022, she had about 18,000 followers across platforms, enough to get offered free gear sometimes, or invited to contribute to hiking collabs, not enough to make real money. She never quit her side jobs. "If it pays for the gas, I'll do it," she once joked on a Q&A stream. Friends describe Lauren as friendly but private, the kind of person who'd talk your ear off during a hike but disappear from group texts for days. She lived alone in a small duplex near Reno with a chipped stovetop and a whiteboard where she scribbled trip ideas. Her best friend, Natalie Reeves, said Lauren had a loose plan to do a reverse season loop, visiting popular hiking spots in their off-seasons, and Utah had been near the top of that list. What stood out most about Lauren, especially in hindsight, was how ordinary she made everything look. She didn't treat the outdoors like a challenge to be conquered. She treated it like home. Whether she was climbing a ridge or just sitting cross-legged on gravel with a protein bar, she brought the same tone, curious, relaxed, sometimes a little sarcastic, always honest. That's part of why people trusted her streams. They felt real. But not everyone watched for the right reasons. As her online presence grew, so did the messages, many supportive, others invasive. She talked about this once during a live Q&A, saying, "It's weird when people think they know you just because they've seen your feet walking." She laughed, but it didn't sound amused. She had her boundaries. She never geotagged trailheads in real time. She disabled location metadata on her posts. She avoided mentioning her return dates. But Lauren also craved connection, and sometimes, against her better judgment, she let things slide. "People are mostly good," she said once in an Instagram story, "and I don't want to live like I'm afraid of everyone." That sentence would come up again. After she vanished, those exact words were reposted hundreds of times, framed as wisdom, framed as regret. To this day, her digital footprint remains active. Her last photos still get comments from strangers, some kind, others desperate. "I still think about that laugh," one follower wrote. "You were so full of life." And she was. She just didn't expect that life to end in silence. The trip wasn't announced in advance. That was normal for Lauren. On October 6th, 2023, she posted a photo of her passenger seat, a half-packed day pack, a crumpled Red Bull can, and her worn Merrell hiking boots with laces looped neatly over the headrest. The caption read, "Desert time, no location, no tags, just 2 words." Friends say she'd mentioned heading south for a few days, possibly into Utah, but no one had a detailed itinerary. That wasn't unusual. Lauren's travel style lived somewhere between intention and instinct. She had a general sense of where she was going, but rarely committed to it out loud. That weekend, weather across southern Utah was clear and dry. High 60s by day, dipping into the 30s at night. Ideal for hiking, if not for camping. Her bank activity later confirmed 2 purchases on October 7th in Springdale, Utah. One at a local grocery, one at a gas station. No hotel records were ever found under her name. Investigators believe she was sleeping in her car, a blue 2011 Subaru Forester with Nevada plates. It had blackout shades rigged with binder clips, an inflatable mattress in the back, and a portable battery charger plugged into the cigarette port. That same day, Lauren uploaded 2 Instagram stories from Zion National Park, both taken near Canyon Overlook Trail. In one, she's filming a sunset, her voice behind the camera. How is this real? In the other, it's just the sound of wind as the camera tilts toward red cliffs fading into dusk. She didn't post again for 36 hours. By the morning of October 9th, she was near the southeastern edge of the park, according to time-stamped footage extracted from her GoPro later recovered in her car. She filmed herself eating trail mix on a flat rock, talking casually about feeling itchy to move. Then, "Might check out the sand bench loop tonight if I still have gas. It's supposed to be quiet." Her voice was calm, not tired, not stressed. The sand bench trail isn't dangerous in daylight. It's rated moderate, a 3.5-mile loop with mild elevation gain and wide views of the canyon walls. But at night, it's different. The trail has long stretches of exposed ridge and switchbacks with steep drop-offs. There are no lights, no guardrails, no official camping along the path. Rangers strongly discourage night hikes there, not because of animals, but because of terrain. It's easy to misjudge footing in the dark, and there's no cell service for most of the route. Except, Lauren did have service. That evening, at 9:26 p.m., she sent a text to her sister Amanda. "Hey, signal's back. Doing a moonlit hike before heading out tomorrow. I'm good." Amanda replied 5 minutes later. It was marked delivered, but there's no record Lauren ever opened it. At 10:14 p.m., Lauren went live on her Instagram. Viewers later reconstructed the stream's path using visual landmarks, cross-referenced with GPS tags embedded in fragments recovered from the stream's source files. She began near the sand bench trailhead off the main road, crossed a wooden footbridge, and followed the initial incline southward. The flashlight beam moved steadily. Her voice was upbeat. "Just needed one more walk before calling it," she said. "The moon's insane tonight." For the next 40 minutes, Lauren chatted intermittently with her viewers. Most of the time she was quiet, breathing heavy on uphills, humming tunelessly in flat sections. She pointed out a large rock she thought looked like a skull. She paused to pan her light across the open canyon. At one point, she tripped slightly on loose gravel and laughed it off. "I should not be out here alone," she said, with a grin in her voice. At 10:56 p.m., she stopped to drink water. She read a comment aloud, someone joking about coyotes, and responded, "If I get eaten, at least y'all get a front row seat." That was the last full sentence she spoke. At 11:03 p.m., the camera view jolted slightly, not enough to seem alarming, just a quick movement, like she turned too fast. The audio picked up what might have been her breath catching. Then, for 12 seconds, there was silence except for the wind. Suddenly, the flashlight beam dropped. The camera caught a brief glimpse of her foot, then the ground rushing up. The image spun, then steadied sideways. The phone had landed lens up, showing stars and part of a branch. For 8 seconds, it stayed like that. And in those final 8 seconds, several viewers, later verified by law enforcement, reported hearing something strange. Not a scream, not a voice. A low, layered sound. Some called it a whisper. Others said it was static. Audio engineers hired privately by the family described it as multi-source, meaning it had overlapping waveforms inconsistent with normal wind noise. At 11:04 p.m., the stream ended. There was no goodbye, no struggle on camera, no sudden shout, just a dropped light, a possible whisper, and darkness. The next morning, her account remained quiet. No posts, no replies. Her followers, most assuming she had gone to sleep, didn't raise alarm until later that afternoon when a scheduled live stream failed to appear. By then, Lauren had already been missing for nearly 16 hours. It started with a missed text, then 2, then 6. By mid-morning on October 10th, Amanda Cook had already sent her sister a string of messages. "How was your hike? Headed back yet? Send me a pic when you're on the road." There were no responses. Still, that didn't immediately raise alarm. Lauren was known for ghosting her phone for a day or two when she was off the grid. But Amanda's unease came from something else, the timestamp. The last message Lauren had sent arrived the night before at 9:26 p.m. Utah time. It was short, casual, but oddly final. "I'm good. Not talk soon, not love you, just I'm good." Amanda tried not to read into it, but by 4 p.m., When Lauren missed a scheduled check-in with their mother, the tension turned into action. Amanda called Lauren's phone, straight to voicemail. She called again and again. Then she checked Instagram. That's when she saw the flood of comments. Lauren's last live stream had ended abruptly, but it wasn't until the next afternoon that viewers began posting on her previous videos, asking if anyone had heard from her. Some assumed it was a joke. Others thought it might have been a technical glitch, but buried in the comments were a few who claimed something wasn't right. One user wrote, "Did anyone else hear the voices at the end?" Another said, "She dropped the light like she got pulled." Amanda messaged several of the commenters directly. Two responded immediately. One sent her a screen recording of the final minute of the live stream. The other linked a Reddit thread already forming around the event. At 5:17 p.m., Amanda called the Springdale Police Department. She explained that her sister was a solo hiker who had likely been near the Sandbench Trail late the previous night, and that her live stream had ended abruptly with possible audio of concern. The dispatcher took down the information and promised to forward it to the Zion National Park Rangers, who held jurisdiction over the trail. By 7:00 p.m., park officials had begun a preliminary sweep of the trailhead. They located Lauren's car quickly, parked legally at the South Campground overflow lot, doors locked, windows slightly cracked. Inside were her sleeping bag, a half-full gallon of water, a paperback novel, and a portable battery pack still holding charge. Her main hiking pack was missing. The vehicle was clean. Too clean. One ranger noted that the front passenger floor mat had been removed, folded neatly and placed in the back. That small detail would later haunt investigators, not because it proved anything, but because it was something Lauren had never done before. In all her past photos and videos, the mat was always there, dirty, worn, part of the background. That night, 2 rangers and a volunteer SAR tech walked the first mile of the Sandbench Trail by flashlight. It's a looping route, but they stuck to the western stretch, the portion visible in the early parts of Lauren's stream. No signs of her were found, but what they did find was unexpected. A small, battered tripod half buried in the dirt just off the path, roughly 0.9 miles from the trailhead. It wasn't broken, just scuffed as if it had been dropped hastily. Investigators later confirmed it matched the one Lauren had used in previous hikes, a flexible leg model she sometimes wrapped around tree branches for hands-free filming. There were no footprints around it, no drag marks, no gear nearby. By midnight, the Rangers made the official decision: Lauren Cook was missing. The next morning, October 11th, a full-scale search operation began. 12 SAR personnel assembled before dawn, accompanied by 2 canine units trained in wilderness tracking. They were briefed with footage from Lauren's live stream, printed stills showing her last visible position, and timestamps triangulated from follower recordings. Rangers hoped to use her own footage to retrace her steps, but there was a problem. The live stream had not been archived. Due to an apparent glitch, or an account setting, Lauren's final stream did not save to her profile. Only fragments remained, preserved by screen recordings from viewers. Investigators managed to stitch together a rough timeline using these clips, but large chunks were missing, including the critical final minute where the flashlight dropped. What remained was unclear, grainy, and unstable. Still, Rangers noted one disturbing visual anomaly in a recovered segment. Just before the stream ends, Lauren appears to turn her head sharply towards something off-screen. Her expression freezes. Her mouth opens slightly. Then, frame cut. The flashlight falls. The still frame of that expression would later circulate online. Most people agree it doesn't show fear. It shows recognition. As the hours passed, the search expanded. Helicopters with infrared cameras scanned the area. Volunteers combed through brush and rockfall. Drones were deployed to cover inaccessible terrain, but the canyon was silent. No sound carried. GPS signals drifted. Radio contact between teams was patchy at best. Even experienced SAR members described the area as disorienting. The whispers, meanwhile, took on a life of their own. By the evening of October 11th, internet sleuths had extracted and isolated the final audio from Lauren's last known stream. Multiple sound engineers tried to clean the file. Some claimed the whispers were just wind artifacts. Others insisted they were voices. At least 3 viewers separately reported hearing the same phrase, "Don't turn." There is no official confirmation of this. The family requested the unedited audio file be kept private after a wave of speculative podcasts and YouTube videos began capitalizing on the case. But the mystery of those final seconds only deepened public obsession and fueled a growing sense that Lauren's disappearance was no ordinary hiking accident. Because people don't just vanish in front of hundreds of witnesses. And if Lauren had slipped or fallen, something, anything, should have been found by now. By sunrise on October 12th, the operation to find Lauren Cook was officially upgraded to high-priority missing person status within Zion National Park. Rangers, search and rescue professionals, volunteers, and canine teams assembled at the South Campground, using Lauren's car as the central staging point. It had been over 60 hours since her last known live stream, and urgency was beginning to turn into quiet dread. The search began with logic. Her stream had shown a clear starting point, the Sand Bench Trail. It looped through a series of sandy switchbacks and exposed ridges along the edge of the Virgin River. Based on visible terrain markers, rangers estimated Lauren had traveled roughly 1.6 miles into the loop before the stream cut off. That became the initial search radius. But there were problems almost immediately. The Sand Bench Trail is known for its softness, a mix of sand and loose gravel that usually preserves prints well. But 2 nights of wind had erased nearly everything. Ranger Logan Montrose described it as searching a chalkboard someone wiped clean. There were no shoe prints, no discarded gear, no obvious signs of struggle, just silence. Helicopters scanned from above equipped with F-layer thermal imaging. Drones flew grid patterns over the upper ledges and hard-to-reach valleys. Mounted units patrolled the riverbanks below. Volunteers walked side by side across the less treacherous paths. All of them were looking for the same things: a dropped phone, a collapsed figure, or anything out of place. Instead, they found absence, but not everywhere. On October 13th, a canine unit picked up a weak scent trail on the eastward curve of the Sand Bench Loop, beyond the portion visible in Lauren's livestream. The trail led upslope for nearly 40 yards before vanishing near a rocky outcrop. No hair, fabric, or belongings were recovered, but the dogs were alert. Agitated, they circled the area multiple times, barking sharply at a shallow crevice beneath the rock. Inside, searchers found a plastic water bottle. It was the same brand Lauren typically used, a smart water bottle with a faint lipstick smear on the cap. But there were no fingerprints, no bite marks, no saliva DNA, just a near-empty bottle, warm from the day's sun. Then, 15 feet away, something else, a torn strip of athletic tape, pale gray, dusty, curled slightly at the edges. It matched the same brand Lauren had used in a photo 2 weeks prior, wrapped around her fingers to prevent blisters. Investigators considered it circumstantial, but not definitive. The items could have belonged to any hiker. Still, their placement, high above the usual path, raised eyebrows. That part of the terrain wasn't on the main trail. The next day, October 14th, the team made their most perplexing discovery. A private search drone operated by a volunteer from a local hiking group picked up what appeared to be a blinking signal deep in a narrow drainage ravine roughly 2.3 miles southeast of Lauren's last known location. The blinking was rhythmic. 2 flashes, pause, 2 flashes, consistent with a rescue beacon. But when a search crew arrived 3 hours later, the light was gone. No beacon, no flare, no electronics, just a pile of small reflective stones, and beneath them, a piece of shattered glass. It wasn't from a phone. Rangers later determined it came from a flashlight lens, fractured but partially intact. The edges were smooth, weathered, as if it had been broken days earlier and then handled by someone, possibly cleaned. That location was over a mile off trail, and between the Sand Bench Trail and that ravine was steep, technical ground, boulder-strewn and almost impassable without ropes or climbing gear. Lauren had neither. By this point, the search had involved more than 40 personnel over 5 days. The National Park Service coordinated with Utah's DPS Aero Bureau, while the FBI began quietly monitoring digital evidence. Lauren's Instagram account was accessed under warrant. Her private messages were scanned. Investigators found no evidence of planned meetings or threats. But one conversation stood out. On October 5th, the day before her trip began, Lauren had messaged a user with the handle @HollowTrace, responding to a comment about night hiking Zion off-season. The message thread was brief, flirty, mostly jokes about coyotes and flashlights, nothing overtly alarming. But when authorities traced the account, it was already deactivated. Its associated IP address had been spoofed through a VPN, bouncing through multiple countries. The email used for registration was a dead drop, created and abandoned the same day. They never found out who it belonged to. Back on the ground, search teams began widening their perimeter. By October 16th, they had covered more than 18 miles of terrain, including unofficial paths, wildlife corridors, and scree fields. The total area searched exceeded 6,000 acres. Still no sign of Lauren. But there was one last detail, one that chilled even the most seasoned searchers. On October 17th, a park ranger reviewing body cam footage from the initial sweep noticed something odd in the background of a clip taken near the western overlook of the Sandbench Trail. It showed a narrow ridgeline where Lauren had walked just before her stream ended. In the distance, barely visible, was a shape. Dark, still, upright. Not tree, not rock, something vertical. The video quality was poor. The shape did not move. It stood just beyond the cliff edge, right where the trail bends out of view. When searchers returned to that exact spot the next day, there was nothing there. No figure, no markings, not even footprints. They reviewed the footage again, tried to match it to known objects. Couldn't. The object, as if it was one, never appeared in other angles or videos. It was a single frame anomaly. Maybe a shadow, maybe a glitch, or maybe something else. After 10 days, the official search was suspended. The Cook family didn't stop. They hired a private investigator, paid for independent drone mapping, and posted a $25,000 reward for information. Tips trickled in, mostly from online followers. One claimed Lauren was spotted in a gas station outside Kanab. Another said she heard a woman crying in a ravine near Kolub Canyon. None could be verified. By November, law enforcement had no new leads, no suspects, no confirmed sightings, just an empty trail, a dropped flashlight, and 8 seconds of whispering audio that no one can fully explain. The first theory was the most obvious, and the one investigators pushed early on. Accidental fall. Zion National Park isn't gentle terrain. Even experienced hikers can misjudge their footing, especially at night. Sandbench Trail has sections with narrow ledges and loose rock. One misstep, and a hiker could fall silently into dense brush or a dry wash, especially if disoriented. Rangers proposed Lauren may have slipped off the trail and landed out of view from searchers. The flashlight dropping could have been part of that fall. The whispers? Audio interference. But there were problems with that theory. First, the drop wasn't accompanied by impact sounds, no snap of branches, no gasp, no rustle. Viewers who rewatched the stream described the moment as weirdly smooth, almost staged. Second, infrared scans showed no heat signature in the suspected fall zones. And the dogs, all 3 units brought in over the first 4 days, didn't alert near any potential fall points. Third, there was the water bottle and tape strip found far from any plausible tumble path. No expert could explain how Lauren would have climbed that high post injury. So the next theory gained traction. Animal attack. Mountain lions are present in the area, though rarely seen. A sudden ambush could explain Lauren's silence. A large predator dragging a body off trail would account for the lack of evidence. Some argued the whispers were wind distorted by growls, but wildlife experts were skeptical. There would be blood, clothing, disturbance, one ranger said. We've responded to predation before. It's messy. This wasn't. No tracks were found, no fur, no scat, and most importantly, no signs of a struggle. So, investigators looked elsewhere. Criminal involvement. This theory gained traction once the Instagram handle hollow trace was discovered. A mysterious user with a short-lived account that vanished the moment authorities started asking questions. Lauren's messages with them were casual, but the timing raised eyebrows. Did she unknowingly reveal her route? Was she lured? No one knows who operated the account. It left no digital trail, a classic throwaway. But its existence fed the darkest suspicions that someone had tracked Lauren. Maybe followed her into the park, waited until she was far enough from help, then made their move. One unsettling piece of circumstantial support, a white truck seen by a ranger in the South Campground lot the night Lauren disappeared. It was parked 2 rows behind her car. No plate was recorded. It was gone by morning. No one ever came forward to claim it. The Cook family leans toward this theory. Amanda, her sister, said plainly in an interview, "Lauren wouldn't just fall. She wasn't reckless like that. Someone was out there. She just didn't know it." But the criminal theory has its own weaknesses. There's no evidence Lauren met anyone in person, no signs of forced entry to her vehicle, no surveillance footage of her outside the park. And even if someone did follow her into the canyon, how did they vanish without leaving a trace? Which leads to the most divisive theory: voluntary disappearance. Some internet theorists, mostly skeptics, believe Lauren staged her own exit, that she planted the stream, dropped her light intentionally, vanished into the dark with a bag packed and a plan ready. Her reason? Burnout, trauma, escape. There's little evidence for this theory, and a lot against it. Lauren had left digital breadcrumbs her whole life. A sudden hard stop with no password changes, no bank withdrawals, no trace. It didn't fit her pattern. She also didn't travel with cash or delete her backup drives. Her laptop remained at home, untouched. And the whispers? What would be the point of fabricating that? The family rejects this theory entirely. "She loved that life," said Natalie, Lauren's best friend. "It wasn't perfect, but she built it herself. She wouldn't ghost everyone. That's not who she was." Still, even park rangers had to consider an angle that made some sense. If Lauren had help. If someone picked her up at the far end of the trail, in a place where no cameras or searchers could track. It's possible. But no one has come forward, and no evidence supports the idea. Finally, there's the theory that can't be ruled out, but resists easy explanation: the unknown. Some call it supernatural, others call it distortion, a psychological, digital, or environmental breakdown that created a false narrative. Some believe Lauren's live stream captured a moment of altered perception, hers or ours. Audio experts remain divided on the final 8 seconds. While most agree that layered waveforms suggest multiple sound sources, none can conclusively identify what those whispers say, or even prove their voices. One report stated they resembled stacked vocal harmonics, often produced by human speech, but distorted. And then there's the figure, caught in one frame of Ranger body cam, standing at the edge of the overlook where Lauren's stream ended. It never appears again. Some call it pareidolia, the brain finding patterns in noise. Others aren't so sure. No one can say definitively what happened on that trail. All we know is that Lauren walked in and never walked out. 3 months passed. Winter crept in. Snow dusted the high plateaus of Zion. The official search had long ended, but Lauren's family refused to give up. They coordinated with independent searchers, shared topographic maps in private Facebook groups, and funded multiple drone sweeps with volunteers who knew the terrain better than anyone. Most of these efforts returned nothing until January 27, 2024. A volunteer drone operator named Darius Chen, working with a group called Hikers United, was scanning a remote slope just east of Gifford Canyon. The area was well outside the initial search zone, nearly 6.5 miles from Lauren's last known location. Darius wasn't looking for her. He was mapping erosion zones for a side project when something caught his eye. A dark line across the snow, short, narrow, perfectly straight. At first he thought it was a shadow, but when he zoomed in it didn't align with anything. Not trees, not terrain. It looked out of place. The next day, he hiked in with a local guide. They found it after 2 hours of scrambling. A straight, deliberate indentation in the snow, roughly the width of a phone. At the base of a rock wall, Half buried under ice and shale was an object that no one expected to find there, Lauren's flashlight. It was intact, scratched, dirt-smeared, but unbroken. The lens had been replaced, not new, but clearly different from the one shown in her earlier streams. It wasn't factory-matched. Rangers confirmed it did not belong to any standard model of the same year. The swap was subtle, easy to miss, but real. And beside the flashlight, pressed into the frozen mud, was a partial boot print. Investigators were flown in the next morning. They marked the scene, gathered soil samples, and began a ground search of the area. What they didn't find was almost more disturbing than what they did. No body, no phone, no clothing, no signs of shelter, tools, or disturbed wildlife, just the flashlight and one more thing. Etched faintly into the rock wall, right above where the flashlight lay, were 3 words: "Stay on path." They weren't carved. They weren't written in blood or paint. They'd been pressed into the rock using some kind of greasy residue, now faded. Lab analysis later revealed traces of lanolin and charcoal, a mix consistent with wax-based trail markers, but applied by hand. The words didn't match any official signage, nor were they visible from any current trail. They faced north, toward a direction no known hiker should have approached from. The print found beside the flashlight was measured at women's size 8.5, Lauren's size, but it was incomplete. The heel was missing. As if the person had been walking on their toes, the location made no sense. To reach that rock wall from Sandbench Trail, one would have to scale nearly 800 vertical feet of fractured terrain, cross 2 dried ravines, and then descend into a basin with no exit paths. There were no reports of other hikers in the area that week. No fire pits, no signal flares, no footprints leading in or out. It was as if someone had placed the flashlight there, carefully, deliberately. When asked if the discovery reopened the case, authorities hesitated. "It gives us something," Ranger Darnell said at the press briefing, "but it doesn't answer anything." The flashlight was sent to a federal lab. It bore no fingerprints, no hair. The battery was dead, and corrosion had begun to eat through the contacts. But tech specialists retrieved one last detail: a tiny fragment of internal footage stored in temporary cache. It was 4 seconds long, no image, just audio. A single breath, sharp, shallow, followed by a whisper, not layered, not distorted, just one voice. It said, "Don't follow." The fragment had no metadata, no timestamp. Investigators could not verify when it was recorded. It might have predated Lauren's final hike. It might have come after. To this day, the voice has not been identified. The family insists it isn't Lauren's. Audio experts remain divided, but the fact remains, her flashlight was found in a place no one had searched, a place no one would have searched, with a message that didn't point forward, but backward, as if warning the searchers not to come any closer. And yet, even with this strange resolution, the central question remained unchanged. Where was Lauren Cook? As of November 2025, Lauren Cook is still missing. Her case remains open under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service and the Utah Department of Public Safety, but no new leads have emerged since the flashlight was recovered in January of the previous year. The area where it was found was searched extensively through late winter and into early spring, but nothing else was recovered. No belongings, no biological evidence, no traceable trail. Her family keeps pushing. Mark and Denise Cook maintain a small, dedicated website, findlaurencook.org. It hosts a digital map of the last known locations, links to the original Reddit thread that tracked the case in real time, and a curated list of verified Livestream fragments, posted with the family's permission. Lauren's sister Amanda manages the email inbox and still answers inquiries personally. Many are kind, some are strange. In October 2024, the family organized a small candlelight hike in Zion, inviting volunteers and supporters to walk the Sandbench Trail together in silence. 17 people came. They left trail markers with Lauren's name at each curve she was believed to have passed. One of them was later removed by park officials. It had been rearranged to spell the word "turn." There's still occasional interest from law enforcement. The FBI's digital forensics unit has kept the Instagram data under review, though no new metadata or location pings have surfaced. Several podcasters have approached the family for interviews, but most requests have been denied. "It's not a story," Amanda said in a brief post last summer. "It's a person, and she's still not home." The case continues to draw attention online. Several independent sleuth forums remain active, posting theories, satellite scans, and AI-enhanced versions of Lauren's final stream. A few users claim they've isolated the moment she begins to react. A half-second head turn, a subtle tension in her voice. But the truth remains as distant as ever. No one has come forward. No one has confessed, and no confirmed evidence places Lauren outside that canyon after 11:04 p.m. on October 9th, 2023. One of the last remaining threads is the flashlight. It remains in federal custody, sealed, tested, archived. The 4-second audio clip has never been released publicly and likely never will. The family's request for privacy remains firm. Lauren's Instagram page, still titled High Desert Lauren, has been untouched since the day she vanished. Her last visible post, still pinned to the top, shows a narrow ridgeline with moonlight cutting across the stone. The caption reads, simply, "Out past the end of the trail." The moment wasn't loud, it wasn't violent. There was no crash, no scream, no dramatic chase through the dark, just a quiet breath. A camera tilting off balance, a flashlight falling, and then silence. That's what makes this case so haunting. It unfolded not in secret but in public, in real time, under a clear sky with hundreds of people watching. A hike that should have ended with a return to the car and a late-night snack instead became a cold, digital vanishing point. One that even now, 2 years later, still refuses to resolve. Lauren Cook wasn't perfect. She didn't plan everything. She didn't always follow the rules, but she was alive in every sense, curious, brave, and fully present in the world she chose to explore. She documented her life not to perform, but to connect. And somehow, in the very act of sharing her experience, she left behind the only clues we have. A sound that shouldn't be there. A flashlight that reappeared in a place no one would have looked. A message, "Don't follow," whispered by someone no one can identify. And a footprint too clean to make sense, pressed into frozen ground far from any trail. If this was an accident, why did nothing surface? If it was foul play, how did no one see the signs? And if it was something else, something harder to name, then what is it we're really looking for? Because the truth isn't just about what happened to Lauren. It's about how we look for answers when the usual ones don't fit. It's about what we trust, video or instinct, silence or signal. It's about the strange territory between presence and absence, where someone can seem right there, visible, breathing, talking, and then suddenly be gone, forever. So now it's your turn. What do you believe happened on that trail the night Lauren Cook vanished? Was it a simple misstep, made tragic by timing? Was someone watching, waiting for her to be alone? Or did the trail lead somewhere it wasn't supposed to? Let us know in the comments. And remember, some trails don't just disappear, they pull people in, and don't always let them go.